Well, today marks 3 years since Boston police officer John O'Keefe was killed. His body discovered outside of a home of another Boston police officer in Canton. His family, however, is still waiting for justice. By now, you likely know that his girlfriend, Karen Reed, is accused of hitting and killing him with her SUV. This trial for her second trial now, is about 2 months away.
But today, people in Canton are remembering the officer whose life was cut short. Our Manash Kwingwari is in Canton with more.
It's been 3 years too long.
Some people say he got lost in this story. We want to remind people that we haven't lost sight of who the victim is here.
Outlasting freezing temperatures, the snow, and time.
This is my first ever 24-hour.
These community members camped outside the Canton Police Department Tuesday into Wednesday to honor John O'Keefe after spending all Tuesday rallying in front of it, only to wake up and do it all again.
It's time for Boston police officer John O'Keefe to get the notice that he deserves.
These familiar faces you've likely seen on the corner of Providence Highway and Dedham, in downtown Boston, or at Norfolk Superior Court supporting Karen Reed, the one accused of killing O'Keefe. Police say the two spent a night out drinking at two separate bars in Canton before she attempted to drop him off at a Canton home back in 2021. During that drop-off, police say she backed her SUV into him, leaving him to die on the front lawn. Now, it should be noted, O'Keefe's friends and family not here by choice, with some even calling this demonstration distasteful. And it's because they are raising money for Karen Reed's defense. Some of John O'Keefe's loved ones believe that is not what this should be about.
Why are you viewing it in that aspect? If he's your friend, you should be happy that people are trying to get justice for your friend.
I don't need to know somebody to know when something isn't right and it's time to take a stand.
Reporting in Canton, Manash Kwingwari, NBC 10 Boston.
All right, Manash.
John O'Keefe is the victim in this case. From our perspective, there will never truly be justice in this case, because the people who should have been investigated weren't. The house where the murder occurred was never searched or processed for evidence. John was a Boston police officer. He was a boyfriend, a brother, and a son. He was an uncle to his niece and nephew who he had custody of when he was murdered. His sister, Kristen, passed away on November 11, 2013. 2 short months later, his brother-in-law passed away from a heart attack, leaving his niece and nephew orphans. John didn't hesitate to take on the responsibility as their guardian. John and Karen Reed were a couple at the time of the murder. Karen is what I would say a strong, independent woman who was helping John with his niece and nephew, even though that often caused tension in their relationship. Karen had no ties to anyone in the circle of trust. In fact, the only person she really knew was John. Brian Albert is a former police officer. He was formerly a part of the Fugitive Task Force. He also was a trained MMA fighter. That's an important detail. Brian has 2 brothers, worth a mention. One is Chris Albert, aka Chicken Parm, Charlie. He is an elected board of selectmen, which controls the Canton Police Department. This is an important detail as it shows the deep connection the owners of 34 Fairview have with the police department who were in charge of investigating this case. Brian's other brother, Kevin Albert, aka Uncle Kev, is a detective for the Canton Police Department. There is speculation that there could be some type of conflict between Kevin and John. The victim, we will get into that a little deeper later on. Brian's wife is Nicole Albert. There really isn't much to say about her, except that her sister is Jennifer McCabe. Jennifer McCabe has a major role in this case. She told Karen to go with her when they left the bar that night, and it was Jennifer who was texting John to come to the after party. She is also the one that Karen called when she couldn't find John. She is also the one that called 911. She is also the one that deleted a lot of relevant texts and phone calls the night of the incident. Brian Higgins, I believe, and this is pure speculation based on hours of reviewing the evidence and watching the first trial, is the real murderer in this case. He was friend with John and Brian Albert. He had exchanged flirting texts with John's girlfriend, the defendant, Karen Reed. The evening of the murder, he was perturbed that Karen was not acknowledging him at the bar. He was play fighting with the MMA fighter in the bar. He yelled something to John on the way out of the bar that night. He invited them to the house. Chloe is the family dog. I have to mention the dog because I believe the defense theory that Chloe attacked John after a fight between himself and the Bryans. Chloe disappeared after this night. Michael Proctor is another key player in this story. He was the lead investigator with the Massachusetts State Police. He is also friends with both the Alberts and then Maccabees. You will learn about the close connections later on in this video. For now, those are the key players. At 7:30 p.m., Nicole Albert meets her sister Julie, her daughter, and Tristan, her boyfriend, out at dinner at the Waterfall Bar and Grill. 7:37 p.m., John O'Keefe walks in to C.F. McCarthy's bar wearing jeans, black Nike sneakers, a gray and dark gray long-sleeve shirt, and dark baseball hat with an American flag on the front, with his friend Michelle. Julie Albert texts John, telling him she's at the waterfall and to get down there. At 8:51 p.m., Karen Reed walks in to C.F. McCarthy's wearing a black jacket, black boots, black pants, a handbag, small purse, and a white shirt underneath her jacket. 8:58 p.m., bartender hands Karen Reed a tall cylinder-style glass containing a clear liquid with a lime in it. 9 p.m., Jennifer and Matt McCabe meet Nicole Albert and her sister Julie at the Waterfall Bar. 9:15 p.m., John hands Karen a cylinder-style glass with a clear liquid and a lime in it. 9:20 p.m., Karen receives a shot glass with a clear liquid in it, which she subsequently pours into her cylinder glass. 9:33 p.m., Karen receives a shot glass with a clear liquid in it, which she subsequently pours into her cylinder glass. 9:57 p.m., bartender hands Karen a tall cylinder-style glass with a clear liquid in it and a shot glass with a clear liquid in it. 10 p.m., Brian and Nicole Albert arrive at the Waterfall Bar. 10:22 p.m., Karen receives a shot glass with a clear liquid in it, which she subsequently pours into her cylinder glass. At 10:29 p.m., Karen receives a shot glass with a clear liquid in it, which she subsequently pours into her cylinder glass. At 10:40 p.m., John and Karen leave the bar, and Karen is holding her last drink in her right hand as they exit the door to the establishment. At 10 hours, 54 minutes, and 29 seconds p.m., John and Karen enter the Waterfall Bar. Karen walked by the left side of the table that Higgins was sitting at, and John walked right up to Higgins first and gave him a hug. Then he gave Brian Albert a hug, and they both patted each other on the back. You can see where Brian Albert was asking where are they coming from, and John pointed across the street. The footage I am about to play is the video by Microdot. I chose to play his video because I like how he explains what is going on, and his narrative is in line with what I believe. I will link to his YouTube in the description. You should check him out if you like this video. We will pick up the timeline based on forensic evidence following this video.
She was happy and committed to John. You could see that in her actions with John that night. You don't have to guess.
Brian Higgins sees Karen Reed enter the bar.
I didn't know she or John O'Keefe would even be there.
His attention is quickly turned to John O'Keefe approaching. John greets him with a warm embrace, then does the same with Brian Albert. Brian Albert and John show affection by patting each other's backs. Brian Higgins leans in, asking John where they're coming from. John points, indicating they were across the street at C.F. McCarthy's. John sees Karina Kolokithis, prompting him to walk over and say hello with a hug. He also says hello to Nick Kolokithis, and then John walks further towards the bar to greet Matt McCabe. Brian Albert whispers something into Higgins' ear. Higgins smiles back, amused, then glances at John, indicating he is the subject of their conversation. Higgins comments back to Brian Albert, and Brian Albert responds with another whisper. Higgins smiles again at whatever Brian Albert said, and then Nicole Albert returns from the restroom, approaches husband Brian and embraces him from behind, prompting the three to converse quietly to each other. Nicole and Brian Albert speak closely for a time, as Higgins watches. Higgins stands to step away to a more isolated location and signals Brian Albert to follow. He wants to say something that even Nicole shouldn't hear. This may be where the idea to confront John is born. We jump ahead 3 minutes later and Higgins, Brian, Albert and wife Nicole are still positioned on one side of the table away from the rest of the group, almost as if they were spectators sitting in the front row watching a play. Brian Higgins takes a photo. His flash goes off in 3, 2, 1. He appears to have pointed the camera through the gap between Brian and Nicole Albert's backs, across the table and taken a photo in the direction Karen Reed was standing. We know this because we then see her return, walking from that area back to John's side. John puts his arm around her and she speaks to Karina and Nick Kolokithis. We continue to see a series of flashes happening on the far side of the table, indicating photos are being taken by the group. Higgins appears to be posing for one between Brian and Nicole. None entered into evidence. Caitlin Albert sits here. Chris Albert stands here, at the left end of the high top. The clock strikes 11 p.m. and 32 minutes later, Higgins, feeling completely ignored, sends a text message to Karen.
When you texted her, at Waterfall, she ignored that text too, correct?
Well, that was the only text I sent that night to her, yes.
Okay.
She didn't respond.
That wasn't my question. My question is she ignored the text, correct?
Well, I don't know if I don't know what her mindset was. If she purposely ignored the text, or she didn't see it, I don't know. I didn't read into it.
Did she ignore the text, Mr. Higgins?
I don't know.
Did she respond to the text?
She did not respond.
Got it.
We jump ahead 15 minutes. Higgins checks his phone, growing frustrated that Karen has not responded to his desperate message. John glances at his phone as well to check the time. It's getting late and almost closing. Karen and Jen McCabe converse, appearing friendly and in good spirits. They laugh together. Karen initiates a group hug, putting her right arm around Matt McCabe and her left arm around Jen McCabe. John, however, seems to take a step back. The Bryans are heavily intoxicated and feeling aggressive. They have identified their adversary in John O'Keefe and are acting out their primal rage with a male display of dominance, otherwise known as peacocking. Jen McCabe picks up on it, but unfortunately for Higgins, Karen has her back turned. He has absolutely no idea how to get the attention from her he so desperately desires. In fact, when he realizes that he's not in her field of view, he seems to end the display. For now.
She actually positioned herself away from you at the other end of the table on the opposite side in the corner. Isn't that right?
Jen and Matt McCabe hold Karen in prolonged embrace. However, what's strange is they never once mentioned to her that there's an after party at Brian's house. For Karen, at least, there's a surprise in store. Meanwhile, John has taken notice of the Bryans. Higgins, humiliated, needs validation from Brian that he's powerful. He has worth. Higgins and Brian continue their private conversation, able to speak more freely since no one is close. If not planning, they were likely exchanging toxic ideas, building animosity towards John, who doesn't seem to be fully in on the joke quite yet. Higgins is feeling insecure and less than. Jen McCabe continues to speak to John and Karen, with Matt standing out of view to the far right. Karen would be forgiven for believing these people are her friends. At first, I considered this may be when Jen McCabe invited John and Karen to 34 Fairview for the after-party, but then I recalled this.
I said, can we make sure we're welcome here? Nobody extended the invite to me. I didn't hear the invite extended to you.
So when, exactly, was John invited? And for what purpose was he to be there? Here comes Chris Albert entering the vicinity of Brian and Higgins. Karen chats with Brian and Chris Albert, but her eyes never find Higgins. Imagine the storm of emotions he must be weathering, standing just inches away from the woman who has consumed his thoughts for weeks. She's right there, so close, yet he is helplessly bound by his own fear, unable to utter a single word. There's nothing more excruciating than being invisible to the one you desire most. Karina has her jacket on. She says goodbye and hugs John for the last time. She then tells her husband Nick that she just needs to say goodbye to Karen before they leave. Higgins is frozen like a deer, hoping not to be noticed, his body oriented towards Brian Albert's back, staring blankly into the side of his head. An inferno of anger, frustration, and embarrassment swirls inside of him, growing exponentially with every passing second. She didn't reply to the text message I sent over an hour ago. She hasn't said hello to me. She hasn't even acknowledged my existence. How could she do this to me? I told her I wanted the real deal. Isn't that what women want?
I don't know where she was all night, no. I don't know.
Did that upset you? That she ignored you or didn't pay attention to you?
I did not feel ignored and didn't upset me at all.
But it bothered you enough to send her a text, didn't it? What the hell, Karen? What about me?
Karen and Karina are saying goodnight. The Bryans continue their performance of alpha dominance, less a calculated strategy and more a mirror of their restless and intoxicated psychological states. Brian likes to fight when he's drinking, and Higgins has been outmatched. Humiliated by a taller, better-looking, much more charming man who doesn't even seem completely aware yet of the dynamics in play. A haunting moment occurs when John and Higgins lock eyes in 3, 2, 1. John must sense now that something is off. Is it just that Higgins has had one drink too many? Or is John beginning to piece it together, understanding what this is really about?
And then there's that sparring and fighting that he and Brian Albert were engaged in. Of all the things they could be doing, this is what they were doing just minutes before John O'Keefe walked into that house at 34 Fairview.
The bar is closing in 5 minutes. It's last call and John offers to buy them a final drink. They decline. Notice here how kind and reserved John appears, smiling and being respectful, while the Bryans are sloppy and have clearly lost control of their faculties. John watches as Brian and Higgins can't seem to keep their hands off each other. Remember, this was their state as they waited for John to walk into 34 Fairview just moments later. They felt invincible, but in reality were barely able to stand. It's easy to see how John might have overpowered them, perhaps pushing them to take drastic measures, or causing a third person to jump in and help. After all, no one can be allowed to beat up an Albert in his own home. That simply cannot happen, especially by a lower-ranking fellow Boston cop like John. Chris Albert hugs Caitlin since he's not going to the after-party with everyone else, and the rest of the Alberts head towards the door, including Higgins. Chris Albert forcibly grabs Higgins by the arm, telling him to stop with the taunting. Higgins looks at Brian for the okay. Chris and Higgins look to Brian. It's fine. Brian allows Higgins to continue. Chris raises his arms and gestures that it's too out in the open, with people watching. But whatever Brian says goes, and Higgins continues. Now, Higgins makes 3 attempts to get John's attention. The first 2 times, John wasn't looking. The third time, Higgins waves his arms and yells. John gets the message and appears to acknowledge it. I believe Higgins was yelling, "We need to have a talk. Go to Fairview."
And you didn't say goodbye to John, correct?
I don't think I said goodbye to anybody.
And you didn't talk to him about coming over to 34th Fairview?
No.
Brian Higgins, however, you can see in his actions, he wasn't quite so satisfied and he wasn't done.
How would you describe sort of the general sort of tone or demeanor within the group at the waterfall that night?
It was fine. Everyone was just having a good time.
No arguments, anything like that?
No, not at all.
Chris Albert knows exactly what was said between Brian Albert, Higgins, and John. And interestingly enough, he decided to walk home instead of attending the after party with everyone else. Karen is still chatting with Karina and doesn't notice any of what had just transpired. We jump ahead to 12:10, and it's time for everyone to leave the establishment. From what we can see, John has been standing alone, conversing with no one, since the outburst from Higgins 12 minutes ago. What was on his mind? What was he thinking about?
That's when Jennifer McCabe went up to Karen and said, "You're coming with me." And she grabbed her, she put her arm around her and she said in front of me, "Hey, you come with me. We're gonna, and Karen said, "Where are we going?" And Jen said, it doesn't matter. It'll be a surprise."
Was it a surprise or a secret? Jen McCabe, Karina, and Karen Reed exit first. Chris knows Higgins and Brian stormed out, so what is he still doing here? Is he discussing it with John, coaxing him to go there and talk to them? Chris Albert heads to the men's room, using it before the walk home. John stands alone, with just Matt and Nick left chatting in the corner. He decides it's time to go and walks out of the waterfall bar for the last time. Whatever John thought was up with the Bryans, he kept to himself.
You texted John O'Keefe, "You coming here?"
I did.
And that had 3 question marks behind it, correct?
Yes.
A few minutes after receiving that text, John was severely beaten and would be dead in a matter of hours. There's certainly motive for Higgins to want to harm John. But what about Brian Albert? Why would he harbor negative feelings towards him? John and Brian Albert were both Boston police officers at the time, and Albert allegedly has a history of violence against other officers, perhaps because he was high-ranking and knew he had power over them. There were never consequences, not for Brian. If he had an issue with John, he may have wanted to address it, cop to cop, and put John back in line. But what issue could he have had with John? Asking that question, I remembered something that was said during the trial. John wanted to know if one specific person would be at the waterfall before he agreed to come. And now, I'm asking myself why. I leave you with this.
What, if any, communication do you recall in regard to who was there or who was going to be there?
With Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think at some point he said, "Who's there?" And I said, "My brother Brian." I said, "Brian." He said, "Your brother Brian?" I said, "Yeah, Brian and Brian Higgins are there." And he said, "Where's your brother Kevin?" And I said, I have no clue.
Was there tension in John's relationship with Kevin that could have upset the Alberts, requiring an intervention from Brian?
Before we get back to the timeline, I want to mention that at 10:55 p.m., when John goes over to say hi to Matt McCabe, you can see Brian Albert and Brian Higgins whispering to each other and laugh, and then Higgins turns his head and looks at John. Nicole comes out of the bathroom and walks over to her husband, and Higgins leans over in front of Brian Albert to talk to Nicole Albert. At 10 hours, 55 minutes and 56 seconds p.m., Higgins gets up from his seat and takes a few steps away from the table, and then waves Brian Albert over to him. He's in a kinda hunched over position like what children do when they have a secret to tell. At 11:32 p.m., Brian Higgins texts Karen that said, well, Karen ignored it, didn't respond. I'm going to skip over the rest of what happened inside the waterfall, because I believe Microdot covered the important events. Let's go over the timeline following the bar. At 12 a.m., Nicole Albert leaves the bar. At 12:10 a.m., Jen McCabe said, "You're coming with me," to Karen, and when Karen asked her where they were going, Jen said it didn't matter, it was a surprise. Then they walk out of the bar. 12 hours, 11 minutes, and 2 seconds a.m. When Jen and Karen walk out of the bar, John, Chris, Albert, and Matt McCabe are still left in the bar. John is standing there and not speaking to either of them. John walks out of the Waterfall bar with a short cocktail glass in his right hand, meets up with Karen, and the two walk together towards Washington Street. At some point, Higgins texts John, "You coming here?" At 12:14 a.m., John texts Jennifer McCabe, where to 12:14 a.m., Jen calls John. The call is answered and they talk for 44 seconds. This call was deleted from Jennifer McCabe's phone. At 12:15 a.m., a large black SUV, consistent with Karen's Lexus, travels on Washington Street and continues towards the Temple Beth Abraham. At 12:17 a.m., the same large black SUV travels past the Temple Beth Abraham toward the intersection of Washington and D-Dom streets, in the direction of Fairview Road. We know from John's cell phone data that he arrived at the 34 Fairview area at 12:19 a.m. As for what happened after this, we can only speculate. There are two versions of the story, and only one is the truth. Karen claims that John went into the house to find out if they are welcome, and never came out. Everyone else that is connected with the homeowner, Brian Albert, say John never made it into the house. What we do know is that at 12:31 a.m., after arriving at 34 Fairview, John took 34 steps and traveled 83.53 feet. That is quite a distance to travel, which would indicate to me that he walked the short distance from the driveway to the side entrance. We also know that Karen left John an angry voicemail at 12:41 a.m. According to Google Maps, it takes about 6 to 7 minutes in good weather to arrive back to John's house. In a snowy blizzard, I would say it would take roughly 10 minutes to get home. This lines up with the 10-minute gap between when she left Fairview and when she sent the angry voicemail. She is heard, in the voicemail, walking in heels and closing the garage door. That confirms she was, in fact, home. Here is the voicemail that was played during the first trial.
Yes, 1 in the morning, I'm with your niece and nephew. You pervert! You're pervert! John, I'm going home. I cannot babysit your niece. I need to go home. You are using me right now. Another girl, he's sleeping next to me. You're a loser. Yourself.
If we are to believe the state's theory that she backed up into him in the road and then drove off and left him in the snow, we would have to also believe that she was able to do that and then still make it home in 10 minutes and send a voicemail while closing the garage door. We also have to consider that the Ring camera footage was deleted that would have confirmed the time she arrived home. As we dig deeper into the police corruption, you will have more questions than answers. Please leave your questions, theories, and thoughts in the comments and add a timestamp so I can go back and reference what part you are referring to. Don't forget to like and share to help this channel grow. Also, subscribe so you get notifications of new videos. Let's examine the calls made to John O'Keefe's phone that evening from Jennifer McCabe, all of which she deleted from her phone. We know about these calls because of John's phone records. She called at 12:14 a.m. and John answers. She calls at 12:29 a.m. and John answers, and they talk for 8 seconds. Following that call, she texts John to pull in behind her. That is the last time that John ever answers a call again. Now, if we are to believe that John never came in, but he answered Jen's call and stated he was coming in, why didn't Jen call Karen and ask why John is not answering his phone? Look how many times she called. Why did she call so many times, back to back? Perhaps she was trying to find his cell phone so she could place it with his body outside. A theory is just a theory. We're going to go back to Fairview to look at Jennifer's Apple Watch data of that evening. We can see from John's call log that 12:29 a.m. was when he got the call from Jen and a text to park behind her. Then 7 minutes later she is calling nonstop to his phone and then stops t 12:50 a.m. I guess she is no longer worried about where he disappeared to. According to those interviewed who were in the residence that night, all the guests left at 1 a.m. After 1 a.m., you can see an increase in steps taken in distance and feet. What was going on? Maybe she was dancing the night away. Well, according to a Google search that she deleted out of her phone, she searched for Hasley Long to die in cold at 2:27 a.m. I speculate the Bryans attacked him in the basement. He fell and bumped his head, and Jen was calling to find the phone. The German Shepherd, Chloe, attacked his arm. You will see the injuries later. Once they found the phone, they went back upstairs where the other guests were. Once the guests left for the night, they carried him outside and left him in the snow without one of his shoes. We will never know because the police never investigated inside that house. Why did she delete all texts and phone calls between her and John that evening, and then delete this search and stop calling him? Did they wait until the guests left and then dispose of his body out in the cold, and then perform a Google search to see how long it would take for him to die? Cell phone data places Jennifer back at her residence at 2:12 a.m. At that point, she doesn't know John is out in the snow, right? Or does she? Why did she search Hosea Long to die in the cold at 2:27 a.m., 15 minutes after arriving home? Karen doesn't call Carrie Roberts about John being missing until 5 a.m. Before I move on to the rest of this timeline, it's interesting to note that Brian Higgins also left at 1:30 a.m., the same time as the McKibbs. According to his own testimony in trial, he went to the Canton Police Department to complete administrative work after a night of binge drinking. He called Brian Albert at 2:22 a.m. At the time they both claimed they were sleeping. The next footage I am going to show you is from Microdot's YouTube channel. This is a dramatization, or a visual of the theory that John was beat up and left to die, and Karen is the fall person. This video is not evidence. I strongly encourage you to watch the trial that is starting on Tuesday and form your own opinion based on the evidence presented. Lady Justice will be live streaming the trial.
Now we get into the real meat of this storm. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. where the snow can come down at the rate of 2 to 4 inches per hour. From 6 to midnight, it's kind of winding down, moderate and light, finally ending around midnight, but there'll still be some accumulation. So let me show you Boston, Worcester, IS, Beverly, Lawrence, snow.
We drop him off, he goes up the driveway.
I went to high school. Sarah's a nurse. She can save you.
John, honey, here.
He's hurt really bad. He needs a hospital.
She's still waiting.
She's still here.
She's waiting for John. Why don't she come to the door?
No one gets in.
Maybe she's calling the police.
Pick up the phone. Where are you?
Blizzard warning in effect until 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time this evening. Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options. John, I'm tired of your fucking kids. Nobody knows what the fuck you are. Fucking her. John, I'm going home. I cannot babysit Amy. I need to go home. You are fucking using me right now. You're fucking another girl. He's sleeping next to me. You're a fucking loser. Fuck yourself.
Hey, you make it over to the station?
Yeah, there haven't been any calls. Nobody knows a thing.
Alright, don't talk to anybody until we talk and call me if anything happens.
Okay, 10-4.
Hey, one more thing, you need to stop back over on your way home. I need help, over something heavy.
See you soon.
4:53 a.m., Karen and John's niece called Jennifer McCabe, distraught because John had not come home. At 5 a.m., Carrie Roberts receives a call from Karen, stating that John didn't come home. It was snowing and she was worried. Karen stated to her, "John's dead." Carrie, I wonder if he's dead. It's snowing. He got hit by a plow." At 5:07 a.m., Karen's vehicle backs out of John's garage and striking John's parked Chevrolet Traverse.
I ask you to pay special attention to that wheel and any movement that you may or may not see. Pause it. Okay. In about the next 3 seconds, Sergeant, I'm asking you to pay special attention to the wheel. Go ahead. We can have the lights on. And you can take that down. Sergeant, were you able to see that video? I know it's not the clearest thing in the world, but were you able to see that video okay?
Yes,
What did you notice about the rear wheel of the Traverse?
Based on the motion in the shot with the snow falling, it appears that there is movement, but the video speaks for itself.
What would you assess based on the movement of the rear wheel of the Traverse about whether or not the two vehicles came in contact with one another?
Objection.
Sustained.
Okay.
At 5:39 a.m., Jennifer McCabe leaves her residence. At 5:36 a.m., Jennifer arrives at John's residence. Jennifer, Karen, and Carrie drive back to the waterfall, and then back to 34 Fairview, looking for John. At 6:03 a.m., they arrive at 34 Fairview Road. Karen sees John laying in the snow on the side of the road in the yard of Brian Albert. Jennifer calls 911.
No, please report my whatever it's
Yes, I'm returning from the 34 Fairview Road in Canton. There's a man passed out in the snow.
You're in Canton, hold on, because you're in Canton, you connected to know, okay?
Yeah, no, I did that.
Yes, the house, that's that line.
I think he's like 50 times after it's 50.
That's that line, that's what it is.
Okay. I'm going. Where's the market? I don't see going to Harry.
911, what's your emergency?
Someone to come immediately to start the Fairview Road, Canton now.
What's going on?
There's a guy on the truck in the snow.
In the snow, 34?
Yes, 34, the Albert resident. Yes, I just pulled up and found it.
Okay, 34 Fairview.
34 Fairview, Canton, yes.
911, that's not important, where's your emergency? Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry, can you come to 34 Fairview Road in Canton?
34 Fairview?
Yes, there's a man unresponsive in the snow.
Okay,
He's going to get here, okay?
Okay, what's going on? Is he based down?
We just flipped him over.
Okay. And who's that in the background? Is that someone really?
That is broken, yeah, so he's...
Okay, how old is he?
John is 46 years old.
46, how long has he been outside?
I don't know, I don't know. He got out of the car and it could have been a couple of hours. If he carried, I don't know if he's breathing. There's two women trying to, it could be heat and that's all.
Okay, can you just try asking? I know it's tough, but we have to talk to go and they just get it.
Is he breathing, you guys? It doesn't seem to be breathing.
Okay, do they know how to do CPR? Do they want to attempt CPR?
Yes, he's got CPR. No, I guess he's gone.
Oh, okay. They don't feel comfortable doing so?
No, I think he's passed away.
Okay. All right, we're going to talk to Connor and the police department all the way. If everyone's just finding CPR, then I'll hang up with you, and if anything changes, you can give us a call back. Where are you guys upside?
I'm better on the CPR. I know, I'm not home with the ambulance. I know. So, Kelly, you gotta get off somebody. Kelly, you gotta get off the hill.
Do you know if there was any alcohol or drugs involved?
He I'm talking hours about me, and I think he's ever home now.
Okay, is there any bleeding or anything? Maybe his head up?
Yes, possibly looking through.
Okay, bleeding from the face. And how big was the blood that you gave to me?
If I could ask you just to back that up about 10 or 15 seconds or so, once the siren outside calms down.
More pine.
Okay, bleeding from the face. All right. And how big the pool of blood is, if there is any?
Something kind of happened, though. One of them is doing CPR.
Okay, one on the is doing CPR?
Yes, that's working my head.
All right, if you want CPR, and just let me, just give us a call back when he becomes responsive, all right, but we're on the way.
Okay, thank you.
At 6:04 a.m., Officer Seraph is the first officer to arrive on scene, where he observes 3 females waving at him from the front yard area of the residence. This is Karen Reed, Jennifer McCabe, and Carrie Roberts.
Right there.
Right there. Now, Officer Seraph, this is you were testifying earlier as far as the vehicle in front of you that you observed first, and then sort of the parties off to your left as far as the 3 females waving and Mr. O'Keefe on the ground, correct?
That is correct.
And if you could, just using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to number 1, where the vehicle is that you observed in front of you, and then number 2, where you observed the 3 females and Mr. O'Keefe on the ground.
So here's the vehicle right there, and the females are right there.
Okay, so now, Ms. Gilman, if you wouldn't mind just running this straight through until about 7.5 minutes. Just one moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
This is about the 3:50 runtime. I'm not looking at the actual. I'm not looking at the actual time of day over here. I'm looking at the runtime, which is down at the bottom. So if Mr. Bates, you could put this at about the 3:50 mark. Can you pause it? Just to orient everybody, does this appear to be your dash cam?
Yes, sir.
Same dash cam you were looking at yesterday?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and play it, Mr. Bates. And pause it. Officer Seraph, just like it's not an eye exam, it's not a hearing exam either. I'm going to do the best I can to raise the volume. And Officer Seraph, I want to focus your attention, if you wouldn't mind, on 9 seconds after you say what happened. Just count in your head and listen very, very carefully to the woman's voice that responds and what she says. Go ahead. Very, very hard to hear. Have you listened to that before?
No.
Does it appear to you that she said, my boyfriend, I left him and he never came home?
I couldn't understand anything.
Okay. Let's replay it one more time. We'll turn the volume up one more time right at that moment. Listen for a woman's voice just under. I'm hearing what you're saying. Sorry. I was asking Officer Seraph, please listen to, there's a din of noise, obviously, road noise, wind noise, etc. It's your dash cam, the audio from your dash cam. Once you close the door, listen very carefully, about 9 seconds after you say what happened, for a woman's voice, and see if you can make out what that voice says.
Sure.
One more time. Stop. Did you hear? I left him and he never came home.
I couldn't understand what they were saying.
You couldn't understand that?
No.
Do you want to hear it one more time?
No.
I don't think it...
No. Turn the lights on, please.
Now, if my client had said, my boyfriend, I left him and he never came home, would that be something that you would find important to put in your report?
Objection. Sustained.
Let's move to another area of the dash cam video. I want to keep playing it at the 28-minute mark, 28-minute and 20-second mark or so.
So can I see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please?
Do you recognize your dash cam video being on the left of the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you looked at Sergeant Good's dash cam video, which is squared up on the right side of the screen?
No.
You've never seen it?
No.
Okay. Does it appear to you that these are two different perspectives of the same scene? In other words, you see the car or the SUV on the left side of the screen right here, correct?
Yes, sir.
See that same SUV right there, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that appear to be two different perspectives, two different angles?
Yes.
Of basically the same thing?
Yes.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to the individuals to the left of the SUV right here. There's a person wearing a hood with fur on it. Is that Carrie Roberts, to your memory?
I don't know.
Okay. There appears to be another person with a darker jacket standing just in front of that person with the hood and fur. You see that person?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to focus on the person in the darker jacket.
Sure.
I believe, and the only reason I'm asking you to focus at this point is because I want to try to play this just once and see if you recognize what's depicted in the video.
Sure.
What I expect you may see is this person move out of sight behind the SUV, and then in the background, there's an SUV parked in the driveway. Pay special attention to that portion of the SUV and see if you see that person in the dark jacket pass from right to left in front of that SUV as if they're going to the house. Let's go ahead and play it. Go ahead and pause it. Have you seen the person in the dark jacket leave the view?
Yes.
Did she appear to go behind the SUV?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and play it. Go ahead and stop track. And now I'm going to ask to draw your attention to that car with snow on it. Pay special attention to that car as the film continues to run. Go ahead. Pause. Do you see a person standing in front of the car?
It appears to be a person, yes.
Walking from right to left?
Yes.
Would that be toward the house?
Yes, it would be.
Okay. And also, if you wouldn't mind switching your perspective, now you're looking more at the front of the house. Continue watching the film and see if you see that same person walking toward the house. Okay, stop. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see. Oh, yes, I saw the shadow, yes.
Right. Shadow of a person
Yes.
walking toward the front of the house. Yes. That was Jennifer McCabe going into the house, wasn't it?
I have no idea.
Was it a person going into the house?
It was a person, yes.
Did you give anybody any permission to go into the house?
No, not my own.
Would you think that a witness in a homicide scene, we can go ahead and raise the lights, thank you. Would you think that a witness at a homicide scene being allowed to go into a house to make contact with other witnesses?
I didn't know it was a homicide scene, sir.
If I could finish my question. Do you think it's appropriate for a witness at a potential homicide scene, an unconscious person scene, whatever, crime scene,
Yes.
to make contact with other witnesses and begin discussing the situation unsupervised?
Can you rephrase that question, sir?
Do you think that's an appropriate thing to have happen?
I have no answer for that, sir. I don't know what you're asking.
Officer Seraph, when you go to a crime scene,
Yes, sir.
one of the first things that you'd want to do is secure the scene and separate witnesses so that interviews could be conducted, correct?
Sure.
You wouldn't want witnesses just cavorting together and getting their story straight, right?
Correct.
You'd want to avoid that at all costs,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And why is that?
So they can't collaborate their story.
Yet there was a person walking from the area where a body was found in the lawn of a house, walking into the house to make contact with other individuals, correct?
It appeared that way, yes, sir.
Does that seem appropriate to you?
No.
Of course not. We've talked a bit about what you did and didn't hear at the scene from my client. At any point when you were at that location, did you hear my client repeating the phrase, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him?
She said, I hit him? No, I didn't hear that part.
You never heard her whisper it, yell it, say it, or otherwise?
Not that I recall.
If you had heard that statement, you likely would have written it down, wouldn't you?
Yes.
You likely would have reported that to Trooper Proctor the next day, wouldn't you?
Yes.
You likely would have mentioned it in your grand jury testimony, correct?
Yes.
And you did none of those things because you did not hear that statement, correct?
I did not hear that, no.
Sir, you were at 34 Fairview for more than an hour before you cleared the scene, right?
Yes, sir.
You were at the location of the body of John O'Keefe.
Yes.
In other words, you just didn't stay in your cruiser. You walked out to where John O'Keefe was.
No, I was in my cruiser at different times.
Must have been a bad question.
Okay.
You didn't just stay in your cruiser. At points, you got out of your cruiser, walked over, made contact with the women, and you were standing next to the body.
Yes.
And you were obviously looking around. You noticed some footprints.
Yes.
And you even noticed some lack of footprints.
That's correct.
So you were being observant at the area of the body
Yes.
and the area adjacent to the body.
Yes.
You were looking for anything that might have been out of place?
Yes.
Anything of any evidentiary value, correct?
Yes.
You never saw or otherwise observed or located a single piece of taillight material, did you?
No.
You certainly didn't see 45 pieces of broken plastic or taillight material, did you?
No.
You never located or otherwise observed John O'Keefe's missing shoe?
No.
Or any other clothing of his?
I didn't. No.
Officer Sharaf, did you ever think to look inside the house
No.
for that missing shoe?
No.
That never crossed your mind?
No.
You think that might have been a smart thing to do at the time?
Objection, Your Honor.
Rephrase the question.
Sure. Do you think that would have been appropriate protocol when dealing with a body laying on a lawn that is partially unclothed to look inside the house of the lawn?
No.
You didn't think that would have been an appropriate protocol?
No.
For you or anybody else?
No.
Obviously, you did not conduct a search of that house, did you?
Nope.
And you're aware that to this day, no law enforcement officer ever conducted a search of that house?
I'm not aware of that.
At 6:08 a.m., Jennifer calls Nicole Albert, the owner of 34 Fairview, and her sister. They talk for 9 seconds. Jen subsequently deleted this call. At 6:08 a.m., Jen again calls her sister, Nicole, and they talk for 7 seconds. Also deleted from her phone. A few seconds later, Jennifer takes a screenshot of Brian Albert's contact information. That might not sound significant, but why did she delete it after talking to Trooper Proctor? We will get to that. At 6:23 a.m., she calls Brian Albert, but he doesn't pick up. She also deleted that call. While waiting to hear back from Brian, she does a few Google searches. How long does it take to digest food? How long to die in sight? And Hosea long to die in cold? At 6:38 a.m., 14 minutes after trying to reach Brian Albert, State Police CPAC unit is contacted. Trooper Proctor called back within a few minutes and was made aware of the situation. You will learn a lot about Trooper Proctor and I will show you his cross-examination. But it's surmised that Brian didn't answer Jennifer's call because he was calling in a favor to Trooper Proctor. But we will never know if that's true because both Brian Albert and Brian Higgins threw their phones away and they were never examined. At 7:59 a.m., the Massachusetts State Police officially assumed jurisdiction of the case upon John O'Keefe's passing. At 8:38 a.m., Jennifer receives a call from the Canton Police Department. This call is answered and they speak for 2 minutes 45 seconds. Also deleted from her phone. At 8:46 a.m., Jennifer receives a call from Carrie Roberts. She answered and they talk for 4 minutes 15 seconds. Also deleted from her phone. These next 3 phone calls happen within seconds of each other. Jennifer calls Detective Sergeant Michael Lank, which was answered, and they talked for 13 seconds. Jennifer Maccabee receives a call from Carrie Roberts, which was answered, and they spoke for 5 minutes 28 seconds. Jennifer calls Detective Sergeant Michael Lank and asks him to return to 34 Fairview to speak with her, because she recalled that Karen said, "I hope I didn't hit him," when they were driving around looking for John. At 9:08 a.m., Karen's blood is drawn at the Good Samaritan Medical Center. At 9:30 a.m., Jennifer calls Carrie and they speak for 2 seconds. At 9:33 a.m., Carrie calls Jennifer and they talk for 1 minute 44 seconds. At 9:37 a.m., Carrie calls Jennifer and they talk for 1 minute 27 seconds. At 10:40 a.m., Carrie calls Jennifer and they speak for 15 minutes 4 seconds. At 10:41 a.m., Sergeant Yuri Buknik calls the medical examiner's office and states that the case is now being treated as suspicious due to a domestic situation that happened after John left the bar. There is a possibility John was struck in the face with a cocktail glass. At 10:55 a.m., Jennifer receives a call from Trooper Michael Proctor, and they speak for 1 minute 18 seconds. At 11:22 a.m., Jennifer arrives at her residence. At 11:30 a.m., Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buknik interview Jennifer. 20 seconds later, Jennifer receives a call from Brian Albert, and they talk for 1 minute 31 seconds. At 12:15 a.m., Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buknik interview Matthew McCabe, Jennifer's husband, while she listened. At 12:20 p.m., Jennifer calls Brian Albert and they talk for 7 minutes 53 seconds. Jennifer misses a call from Carrie because she's busy getting the plot from Brian. But at 12:37, Jennifer then calls her back. She's been going back and forth with her all day. Notice no one is talking to Karen, their friend that was the only one distraught. They talk for 6 minutes and 28 seconds. Only a few minutes later, this busy bee receives a call from Trooper Michael Proctor, and they speak for 1 minute 9 seconds. After she gets off the phone with the lead investigator, she deletes the screenshot she took hours earlier of Brian Albert's contact information. A few minutes later, Brian calls Jennifer again and they talk for 4 minutes 37 seconds. And then when she gets off that call, she calls Trooper Proctor back and they speak for 1 minute 42 seconds. When she gets off the phone with the lead investigator, she takes and receives a few calls. But then she gets right back to creating the How to Frame Karen plot with Brian Albert. She receives a call from Tom Beatty and talks for 3 minutes 14 seconds. She calls Peggy and talks for 7 minutes 18 seconds. She then calls Brian Albert and gives him an update on all the good work she has put in all day. They talk for 6 minutes 6 seconds. Then she gets a call from Julie and they talk for 3 minutes 21 seconds. Now she has to call Carrie back to give her an update and make sure she understands her role. They talk for 11 minutes 22 seconds. At 2:31 p.m., troopers assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office call Patrolman Nicholas Burrows and inform him they are on their way to a residence in Dighton to speak to a party and retrieve a vehicle that was involved in an accident that occurred in Canton yesterday morning. They also told him that the vehicle was involved in a homicide. At 2:36, Jennifer receives a call from Brian Albert and they speak for 4 minutes 35 seconds. I presume this was to congratulate her on a job well done and let her know mission accomplished, and Karen is going down for this. Jennifer calls Nicole and they talk for 5 seconds. Nicole calls her back a few minutes later and they talk for 22 minutes 58. At 3 p.m., Trooper Michael Proctor calls Nicholas Burrows to inform him that they were 10 minutes away from Karen's parents' residence. At 3:43 p.m., Jennifer calls Carrie Roberts and they talk for 5 seconds. A minute later, she calls Nicole Albert and they talk for 13 minutes 41 seconds. At 3:57 p.m., Jennifer receives a call from Carrie Roberts and they talk for 34 minutes 37 seconds. At 4:12 p.m., Karen's black Lexus SUV is towed from the driveway by Diamond Towing in North Dighton. At 4:30 p.m., Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buknik arrive at Karen's parents' house to interview and recover her car. Proctor notices the passenger side taillight is shattered with a large red plastic piece missing, according to him. At 4:59 p.m., Jennifer calls Nicole Albert, and they talk for 9 minutes 1 second. At 5:15 p.m., Jennifer receives a call from Brian Albert, and they talk for 1 minute 27 seconds. Then Jennifer calls Carrie Roberts, and they talk for 8 minutes 32 seconds. At 5:25 p.m., Trooper Matthew Dunn and Trooper David DeSecco interview Carrie Roberts. At 5:27 p.m., Jennifer calls Nicole Albert, and they talk for 21 minutes 24 seconds. At 5:30 p.m., Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchnick seize Karen's cellular phone. CERT team, along with Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully from the Massachusetts State Police, conduct a second search of the crime scene, located outside of the 34 Fairview residence. Here they locate one piece of clear plastic taillight, a black Nike sneaker with a white Nike logo along the side, and 2 red plastic pieces of a taillight. Interestingly, they didn't find this evidence until they had her car in their custody. Now I'm going to show you cross-examination of the first trial. When the detectives are caught in a lie by the defense in regards to tampering with evidence.
Yesterday, Sergeant, you were asked about a couple of videos related to the Sallyport garage. You have that in mind?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, we watched one of them pretty specifically toward the end of the day yesterday. Did you actually, I want to talk about the one that is the clearer of the two, where you slip. You remember that one?
If you pull it up, I can.
I will in just a second.
Okay.
There was one where Mr. Lally paused it and you were slipping in front of the vehicle.
I don't recall myself slipping, no, but it was icy that day. So if there's documentation of me slipping, I might have happened.
Fair enough. I didn't mean anything by that other than that was a moment that I thought you might recall to differentiate the videos. It's Exhibit 446, but I don't think that's going to help you. All right, let's see if I can do this another way. Did you actually personally go to Canton PD to retrieve any or all of the videos of the Sallyport? You yourself?
I did go to Canton and collect already extracted video.
Okay.
But it was a portion of video surveillance. I didn't collect all of the video, so
When was the most recent time that you went to Canton to collect a portion of the video?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Did you review let me ask it this way. Did you collect a video that was sought on or about April 23rd, April 24th this year, meaning just a few weeks ago?
Did I collect it?
Correct.
I did not collect that video of April this year, no.
You're aware that the video that you saw yesterday was in fact collected after the trial started in April of 2024?
Objection.
Sustained.
Are you aware of when that video that we saw yesterday was collected?
Objection.
I am not aware.
Okay. Was yesterday the first time you'd seen that video?
No.
When had you seen that video previously?
A couple of weeks ago.
Okay. What were the circumstances in which you saw that video?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you have a meeting with the DA?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you ever have any kind of communication with Mr. Lally about your testimony?
Objection.
Sustained.
May we approach?
Yes.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Sergeant, did you have any meetings or communications with Mr. Lally in anticipation of your testimony?
Yes.
When was that?
It was about 2 weeks ago, and then last week, I believe.
And what was discussed? Generally.
Generally, we discuss the portions of the case that I would be presenting.
Did you write a report about your communications with Mr. Lally?
No, I did not.
Were you shown any of the videos that you've seen here in anticipation of your testimony?
Not during the first meeting. I did review a video during the second time.
Okay, and that video was that you did see the second time was the interior video of the Sally Port that we saw yesterday, correct?
I'm just trying to remember exactly what video I saw. I had reviewed videos outside of our meeting, so I don't remember exactly what video Mr. Lally showed me.
But you do recall seeing the video that you saw yesterday, the sort of clear one that has the crime scene tape being put up and all that. You have seen that one before?
Yes.
And that was with Mr. Lally, correct?
That is not correct because I do not recall when I saw that video or what video I saw with Mr. Lally.
I see. All right. I'd like to talk about that Exhibit 446 for a second, and then I'll show it to you. You indicated that the video, all the videos, everything that you saw yesterday was true and accurate, correct? Based on your memory of the events that were memorialized in the video?
The video captures events taking place in an accurate fashion, yes.
In an accurate fashion. All right, that's what I wanted to find out. And after you watched the video, I think you were asked by Mr. Lally, does the video show you or Trooper Proctor having access to or messing with in any way that right rear tail light in any fashion? And you said never.
I was asked if at any point Trooper Proctor and I had came into contact, I believe, or touched the vehicle and that portion of the vehicle, and I said never. We never touched the vehicle prior to it being properly processed with a search warrant.
And that was specifically his question was to, and your answer was to the right rear portion of the vehicle, right? That right rear tail light.
The right rear damaged taillight, correct.
Right. With the court's permission, I'd like to play a portion of Exhibit 446.
Okay.
Before we begin playing it, Mr. Bates, if you wouldn't mind, may I inquire, Your Honor, of the witness just to lay a foundation? Yes. Sergeant, do you recognize this as being the video that we saw yesterday?
It does look accurate.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. This is 446, just so you have it in mind if I reference that. Space, if you could play that. And I think it's runtime 120. Pause it. Do you recognize that as the video we saw yesterday?
Yes, I do.
Very briefly, if you could move to time of day, 5:37:05. Court's permission, can we play at this point?
Yes.
All right, that shows the vehicle coming into the Sally Port, and we're looking at which side of the vehicle?
So that is the driver's side of the vehicle. What that video depicts is a mirror collection. Although mirrors are accurate representation of what you're seeing, it's just inverted. So that is the driver's side of the vehicle. I do not know why it is inverted, but that's the way it was presented, collected and presented from Canton Police.
Can you see a timestamp or a time and date stamp on the bottom of that? It's in blue.
I cannot know.
Does it appear that time and date stamp, if you can't read every letter on it, that is in correct order? In other words, that's not inverted.
I cannot read it, no.
All right, let's go ahead and play this for a second. Who is that just got out of the car?
I do not know. I think that's the tow truck driver. He would have the only access to the vehicle. We did not touch the vehicle.
Who's that on the left?
I missed that. I was looking down at the laser pointer. I do not know. I know for a fact I'm the gentleman that's wearing a dark olive drab state police baseball style hat, and Trooper Mike Proctor is wearing a winter hat.
Trooper Proctor's wearing what?
A winter hat.
Back that up. That was playing, and I didn't realize it was playing while you were talking. And stop. Yesterday, when you testified, you indicated that the two individuals in this scene were you and Trooper Proctor, correct?
That is not correct. There was two individuals in the rear of the vehicle I shined my light to. That was me and Trooper Proctor.
Do you see Trooper Proctor toward the back of the rear of the vehicle there?
I can't tell because of what the head is. I just know that Trooper Proctor was wearing a black hat.
Which the person in that in the video to the left, to the rear of the car, is wearing a black hat, correct?
I can't tell. I don't want to be locked into a statement where later on you show me that it's somebody else magically. I can't testify to that.
There's no magic about this. It's your testimony. I'm just asking you what you see.
I don't see that. No.
Let's go ahead and play it this way. Do you see the person toward the back of the vehicle walking toward the opposite side of the SUV?
I do.
What area does he appear to be going to?
He appears to be going towards the rear passenger side of the vehicle, although it does not appear so because the video is inverted, a mirror image. That's where he's going.
And Sergeant Buchnick, you testified for at least a half an hour about this video yesterday, correct?
I'm sorry, it was a long day. I don't know the timing of how long I testified.
You significantly testified about this video yesterday, did you not?
I testified about this video.
And you testified that it was true and accurate, correct?
Correct.
You testified that it was reflective of your observations of what was happening in that Sally Port that evening, correct?
I testified that this is a accurate scene and collection of video evidence from the Sally Port.
And as that truck sits in that Sally Port, just like this, it appears from all perspectives that what we're looking at is the passenger side of the car, and that right rear taillight is right there shining in our face, correct? From this perspective.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
From this perspective, from the perspective that the jurors are looking at,
okay.
From all indications, that would appear to be the right side of the truck, the passenger side of the truck, and that taillight that you can see is the right rear taillight from this perspective, correct?
The way it presents itself, yes.
And yesterday, during the entirety of your questioning, by Mr. Lally, not once did you mention that this video is actually completely inverted.
I did not know.
Mr. Lally didn't ask you if it was inverted, correct?
That's correct.
And if I hadn't gotten up here and begun questioning you, that would be left uncorrected, correct?
Objection. Sustained.
The person with the winter cap appears to walk directly to the what ultimately should be the right rear tail light of this car, correct?
That's the vicinity, yes. That's where he is. Yeah.
Pause it. I'd like you to pay attention to the right rear of this car. And I know we're completely backward, but it's the far corner of the car. Do you see a person's head there?
It appears as if someone's still there.
And that person is located at or near what portion of the car?
In real life or as it's depicted?
Is the person near in real life, near the right rear tail light of the car?
Yes.
Matter of fact, standing there, hovering around there, correct?
We don't know the distance that they are in proximity to the actual vehicle. We just know that they're behind the vehicle. That
looks like it's pretty close, doesn't it, Sergeant?
Objection.
Sustained. Does that look like he's in close proximity to the right rear tail light?
As I said, I can't tell how far away he is from the vehicle.
His head's right there, sir. You can't tell that he's right next to the right rear tail light?
Objection. Sustained.
All right. I want you to pay attention to what that person does as soon as the other person comes out from behind that car. So you see him moving. Stop it. Do you see that person move?
I saw movement in the frame, yes.
Right when the other person is in eyesight of the person toward the right rear, correct?
I mean, the video speaks for itself.
Yeah, it does.
No.
Objection, Your Honor. The objection sustained. No commenting, Mr. Jackson. We've talked about that.
I'm going to ask Mr. Bates to back it up because there's one other issue I want you to pay attention to, if you can, right at this moment or right before this moment, and that is the timestamp. You back it up maybe 10 seconds. Right about there. Don't play it yet. Instead of paying attention to the individuals, I'm going to ask you, can you see, may I approach the screen, Your Honor? Yes. Can you see the timestamp at 5:37 and 37 seconds p.m.? Can you see that from where you're at?
No, I cannot.
Me neither. That's why I don't walk up to it. Let's play it for about 10 seconds. Pause it. Did you see another person just appear toward the rear end of the car?
There was a fog of some sorts. It did appear as if a person was actually in. There was two people back there, and two people walked away, or one person walked away.
The timestamp jumped to 5:38:01. Correct?
I cannot see the timestamp, sir.
Did it appear that there was an anomaly? There was a portion of that video that was deleted. Or it's missing. Not deleted, but just missing.
Objection. Can you tell that? Does it appear that way to you, Sergeant?
No, Your Honor, I cannot tell what is happening with the video.
If you take a close look at there's a classic police car in that Sally Port, correct?
There's an antique vehicle there, yes.
If you take a close look at the trunk of that vehicle, see the word police?
Yes, I believe I can read that, yes.
And it's backward, correct?
It is mirrored, correct.
That's a good indication that this is an inverted video, right?
It appears that way, yes.
And if we were to fast forward at 5:42, not another 20 seconds. There you go. Can you just play it at this point? You take one pause. Pause it. You see the Sallyport garage came down?
Yes,
You see a number on the garage?
I do.
Is that correct?
What is correct?
Does the number appear correct? Is that how you make it 4?
No, the number's in the mirror image, yes.
I just wanted to make the point. Everything in this video is completely backward, correct?
It's not backwards, it's mirrored, reversed. You can look yourself in the mirror in the morning, you still see your own face. It's not backwards.
But my mirror image is not an accurate depiction of who I am. My
Check.
actual physical appearance is who I am, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
A mirror image, Sergeant, is not an accurate video of this, is it?
Objection.
It's a mirror image by definition.
Sustained. Ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
Rhonda, thank you. I don't think I need to.
At 6 p.m., CERT team conducts a second subsequent search of the crime scene located outside of the 34 Fairview residence. AMD recover 3 pieces of red and clear plastic, consistent with Ms. Reed's taillight. Why wasn't this evidence found earlier, when there was less snow? I surmise that Mr. Brian Albert handed over the shoe from inside the house, and Trooper Proctor planted the evidence. Or Brian himself planted it knowing they were coming back to the scene. At 6:16, Jennifer calls Nicole Albert and they talk for 5 seconds. She then calls Nicole again and they talk for 6 minutes, 33 seconds. Then Jennifer receives a call from Carrie Roberts and they talk for 8 minutes. I'm sure that last call was to make sure they all stick to the story, and they do. Karen is arrested on February 1st of 2022. This is a quick recap of this case ahead of the retrial starting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We will be live streaming the trial, so please tune in and join us in the live chat. I will be there to answer any questions you may have. I hope you enjoyed this video.